the object of this meeting this morning is just to try and get a plan in place so that we can, in a certain sense, we're not going to be able to do it with any real perfection, but in a certain sense, get an idea, a diagram of the site, and get a survey set out so that we can, in fact, come back successfully, and so that when Jim Delgado has an opportunity to review some of this material, he can see where it came from, get a sense of its in situ situation prior to removal, and get a good overall sense of the site. The area that's been worked so far is just a very small, it's about a meter square, according to Mike. We have to make that grow. Alan had a good suggestion this morning, which was to get the handheld magnetometer and try and develop the site a little bit further. How would you do that, Alan?
Well, we'd use the handheld metal detector, because we know we've seen that it's copper clad on the bottom, so that would be everywhere. We may be able to define the outline of the ship if we can find all the copper throughout the whole thing. Maybe get a length from it and a width from it, from where the copper sits. So we'd like to try that. And also, we did hear from the one native that some time ago he thinks under the coral might be an anchor. So that I'd use the handheld magnetometer, which will get out the copper, read the copper, and maybe we can find the actual anchor also. So those would be two things I'd want to do.
So in a perfect situation, we could end up with 4 points that would describe the area of the wreck. Mm-hmm. We can measure that off roughly.
And maybe even find where the actual anchor is, and hopefully that'll give us our bow at the same time.
Is there any way we can take a position? Do we have DGPS?
Sure. We can bring a small boat over there and do that right on top of it.
Great.
Because the whole idea is to use archaeological guidelines. So that
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we can come close to that. The materials that we've seen so far are generic, but they certainly seem to be in the right time frame. One recovery that would be an important one is, I think, a couple of pieces of the ballast stone, which might give us a...
geologist could check that out.
So what would be the overall main objectives of what's left of our diving?
Well, I think, number one, defining the site. Number two, once we have the site defined through the procedures that we've talked about, one of the things that will be important is to get enough information and get it back to Jim Delgado, who is the team's archaeologist, and be able for him to understand what we've seen. So it's not just for our own use, it's just getting enough information and get it clearly enough placed so that someone from the outside can look in and actually get a sense of where we are.
So even though we're first, we want to leave a trail for anybody else who wants to come and check the work. And
a bona fide archaeological survey.
Right. Sure. Right. Great. So what's the easiest way to get a position? Should we take some headings on the tower and mark it relative to perhaps somehow get a rough measurement from the tower? Is that possible?
The tower is the only really permanent structure we have.
Right.
We can certainly work from the tower, but we could also work from a couple of DGPS positions and literally measure off from them.
Sure.
And I think that might be a good way to go. If we could set up one buoy in this for purposes now, perhaps right in the center of the 1 meter by 1 meter square, and get a DGPS of that at the surface, then we'd be pretty good in terms of being able to measure off that point.
What do we know about what we've seen so far that tells us that this could be the Mary Celeste?
The artifacts check out into a 19th century wreck, for one thing.